Welcome everybody. I am Mohib, your trainer for this entire free Spring 6.1 framework. You're watching me on Code with Mohib YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe my channel and let others also get updated with latest version of Spring framework, which is 6.1. I talk step by step and to the point content of Spring 6 framework to get mastered in Spring. In this video, I'm gonna talk about introduction of Spring, and we will also talk about what contents will be covered in this free Spring series, and after that we talk about the prerequisites, what we need to in order to continue Spring framework. In continuation of that, I will also talk about dependency injection, what dependency injection is, and we will have a short view of IOC container and how IOC container acts or works in Spring framework. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is the content, to tell you what content I'm going to cover here. Content. So things that I'm going to cover in this free Spring 6.1 framework series. And the first one we'll talk about Spring Core, which is the most important module of Spring framework. In this module we'll talk about dependency injection, how dependency injection happens or done. We will have a view of inversion of control, how to do that one. We will also cover property injection and constructor injection, and there are other topics also that we will cover in this module of Spring. In fact, Spring Core is the most important module of Spring framework, which helps us, once we learn Spring Core module, it will help us in Spring Data Integration or Spring Data Access module, and after that it also helps us in Spring Web, Spring Boot, or Spring Security. So Spring Core module is the most important module of Spring framework. So I request you to watch every video of this module at least twice, because once you are mastered in Spring Core, then for sure you will be able to continue the remaining modules of Spring easily. After finishing about Spring Core, we will start another topic, that is another module of Spring, which is Spring Data Integration or Spring Data Access. And this Spring Data Access or Data Integration, we will learn about Spring JDBC, how to integrate or access data with database. We will also cover Spring ORM, how Spring ORM works. And there are many other topics that we will cover in Spring Data Integration or Spring Data Access module. Once we are done with the Spring Data Integration, we will straight jump into another module of Spring, that is Spring Web. In Spring Web, we will cover about Spring Web MVC, which will help us in developing web applications. And we also learn about MVC, how MVC works and how to use MVC applications. And with the Spring Web module, we will also learn making REST APIs. After finishing Spring Web, we will cover about Spring Boot, I'm planning to create a separate playlist for Spring Boot, but I do not promise for that. I'll make it instantly or I'll make it later. But we'll see. I might create another playlist for Spring Boot, or I'll continue Spring Boot after finishing the above three modules like Spring Core, Data Integration, Web, and then I'll start Spring Boot. And there are some other topics, like some miscellaneous topics I'll cover in Spring, like Spring AOP, others. So what I have outlined here does not mean that these are the only things that I'll cover, or the points that I mentioned will be the topics or the content that I'll cover. No, we will go in deep. I'll try to cover maximum like about 90% of Spring Framework in this series. So that now that we understand what content we will be covering in this series, to continue this series, we have to know about the prerequisites, like what we need to in order to continue this series. So the prerequisites are things that you have to know before starting Spring Framework. That the first thing is, which is very, very important, that is core Java. Actually, core Java, when I write core Java, means that we have to know the object-oriented part of Java, or standard edition of Java, where you have to know about classes, methods, constructors, parameters, constructor overloading, polymorphism. These are the topics that you must know in case you want to continue with Spring Framework. Because once you're mastered with Spring Java, core Java, or Java Standard Edition, this knowledge of Java Standard Edition or core Java will help you to conquer Spring Core easily. And once you're mastered in this one, then this knowledge will help you to become master in Spring Core module. So core Java is really important for Spring Core module. The second thing, after knowing this one, it is better to have a good grasp of JDBC, and you have to know how JDBC works. You have to know about the classes and interfaces in JDBC technology, and it would be also better that you know about Hibernate framework, because Hibernate framework is an ORM framework. Knowing or having knowledge about JDBC and Hibernate framework will help you to easily understand Spring Data Integration or Spring Data Access module. So the knowledge of JDBC and Hibernate will help you in Spring Data, or in Spring Data Integration or Spring Data Access module of Spring. Once you are good in JDBC and Hibernate, it is better to know good knowledge or have a good knowledge of Servlet and JSP. Having a good knowledge of Servlet and JSP will help you to understand Spring Web module easily. I would like to mention one thing here, that when I say that it's better to know about JDBC, Hibernate, Servlet, and JSP, this will help you understand the Spring Data Integration Access or Spring Web module easily. But if you do not know, or if you do not have a good grasp, or if you do not know JDBC, Hibernate, Servlet, and JSP, still you will understand Spring Data Integration or Spring Data Access or Spring Framework, but it needs much time to practice or to analyze how the process is done, or how the code is written, or how the application process is done. And it is also recommended if you have a good you have a good knowledge of some web or database terms. Like in web, you know about HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, JavaScript, because web applications we need HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, JavaScript. And also some database terms, like some databases like Oracle, MySQL, and you also have a good knowledge of queries like how insert is done, how delete is done, update. Like these are the basic things in database you have to know, because if you're not good in database and web like HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, JavaScript, then the process might become a little bit complicated to you in order to continue Spring Framework or to work with Spring Framework. Once again, I would like to mention here that not knowing or not having a good knowledge of JDBC, Hibernate, Servlet, JSP, HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, JavaScript, or some databases like Oracle, MySQL, or knowing about the queries of databases does not mean that you will not understand Spring Framework. But Spring Framework, then it takes a little bit of much time that you have to practice Spring Framework. Now that I used the word Spring Framework, Spring, I bombard you like anything with the word Spring. Let's understand what actually Spring is and why this framework is so important. What is Spring Framework? Actually, I will write here 6.1, 6.1 because I'll cover this one, which is the latest version, released at the end of 2023. So we'll talk about this one, what this Spring Framework is in fact. With the very simple words, we can say that Spring Framework is the framework of frameworks. Very simple definition, but I'll enhance this definition. Framework of framework means that it uses multiple frameworks inside this one in order to develop applications. This is a very simple thing we can define in Spring if anybody asks about Spring, but it doesn't mean that it is a complete definition. For sure, in order to win a discussion, we can say that is a framework of frameworks, and it's the strongest framework we can say, or the strongest technology that today in today's market is used, and most of the developers, they are using this one. Of course, it doesn't mean that people are not using ASP.NET or Laravel or Django. No, they are using everyone has its own demand in the market, and based on the project and based on the companies, they differ. But for creating enterprise applications, Spring is number one. Creating banking applications where security comes in picture, then Spring is number one. So this is the only thing I can talk about Spring Framework, what Spring Framework is actually, and how much strong it is, in which important field Spring is used. It is actually a dependency injection framework. Dependency injection framework. What do you mean by dependency injection framework? Dependency injection framework means that it is a framework that helps us in creating loosely coupled applications. Means that it removes tightly coupling, but instead it brings loosely coupling. Or with the help of this framework, we can create or develop loosely coupled applications. And loosely coupled applications are the applications which are easy to change or modify. So this loosely coupling or all these things are done with the IOC. That's called inversion of control. It means it is an IOC is a container, or I can say that Spring provides IOC. IOC means that inversion of control. It means that it provides IOC container. So IOC stands for inversion of control. With the help of this, we perform dependency injection. With the help of IOC, we perform dependency injection. And what is dependency injection? Dependency injection, it is a design pattern. It is a method. It is a way of creating applications. And this dependency injections helps us in creating loosely coupled applications. And we can also say that Spring Framework makes the development process really easy. And with the help of Spring, like Spring Core, Spring JDBC, Spring MVC, Spring Security, and all these modules come together to make the applications really quick and easy. This framework was created by Rod Johnson, it is developed by Rod Johnson, if I'm not mistaken about the spelling. Rod Johnson, yeah, Rod Johnson, in 2003. In 2003. Actually, before using Spring Framework, we had another framework in the market that was Struts. And we also have other frameworks we are using in today, like Play is a framework of Java-based framework. So this framework is developed by Rod Johnson in 2003 for developing web applications. And so this is the only definition we can have for Spring. Now here, I talked about two terms, one about dependency injection, one about IOC or inversion of control. What dependency injection is and what IOC is. Very important in Spring, because in every lecture or in every video or whenever you are watching any YouTube video about Spring Framework, you will probably mostly you are faced with these terms, or you will listen these terms, dependency injection, IOC, and so. So let's actually talk about dependency, what dependency injection is and what IOC is. I'll just write here what is dependency injection. Let me write injection. What is dependency injection? Okay, before talking about dependency injection, first we have to know about how we, without dependency injection, how we were doing our applications development. Assume that we have a class. That class is called, for example, class Mike. I'll call this as a class Mike. This is a class, and I'll call this class Mike. Inside class Mike, I have a method, for example, public void do some work. And this is a method and some code. This is one class. And there I have another class, for example, class Tom. Class Tom, this is a class. Inside this class again, I have a method that's called, for example, public void do some work, or for example, any name you can name it. There's no issue about naming. It's just a method name. It's another class. In older time, what we were doing is that I'm talking about core Java, something like this, okay, about Java Standard Edition. Assume that in order to my class perform some work or an action, this class needs the object of Tom class. Without Tom class, this class, it means my, cannot perform any action. Somehow this my class is totally dependent to Tom class. It is, if you revise the video, I talked about loosely coupling and tightly coupling. So this class is tightly coupled with Tom in case we create the object of Tom inside my class. How? In previous we were making like this. We were using new keyword Tom, T object, for example. I'll call this obj equals to new Tom. We are creating an object of Tom class using new keyword. This is called tightly coupled. Why tightly coupled? Because we have created the object of Tom class inside my class. In case we bring any changes inside my class or Tom class, again we have to change the code. By changing code means that your constructors may change, the order of constructors, parameters and constructors may change, data type of parameter of constructor may change. So in that case you have to change this object as well. So this is called tightly coupling. If you bring any changes here, you must bring changes here. If you need any changes, then you have to change both coding, so both classes. So this is called tightly coupled or a tightly coupled application. Now, what Spring does is that it has introduced a design pattern. Design pattern means a method of writing code. So this dependency injection is in fact a design pattern. It means with the help of this design pattern, we can create applications. Which kind of applications? We can create loosely coupled. This is called tightly coupled, but we can create loosely coupled applications. How it is done? So to do this one, or how this process is done, that in loosely coupled applications, we do not create the object of Tom class inside my class. We do not create this object. We provide the information of the object to a container that is called IOC container, and Spring will perform this one. It means Spring will create an object and insert it inside this class, inject it inside this class. Assume like a doctor which injects the injection to a patient. Now here, this injection is done by Spring. Spring acts as a doctor here that injects the information into this class. Now this is called dependency injection. So what Spring does is that the task of creating object by using new keyword now will be done by Spring. Spring has the capability of creating Tom's object. It means this class, It has the ability of creating the object of this class and will inject the object of this class into another class, which is the Mike class. Now Spring will create object and insert into another class. This is called dependency injection. Spring will create the object of this class, Tom, and will inject it inside the another class, which is Mike. And this is called what? This is called dependency injection. Or this complete process is also called as IOC, inversion of control. So what inversion of control is, so we understood about the dependency injection and what IOC is. So what is IOC? IOC means that we give the control of creating object of Spring. We give the control of creating object to Spring. It means we are not creating the object of this class. We give the control of creating the object of this class to Spring, and Spring will dynamically, listen, Spring will dynamically create object at the runtime. Spring will create what? Will dynamically create object at runtime and inject it in another class. And this is called what? If injected inside this class, and this is called what? This is called IOC, and this complete process is called IOC. It means done by IOC. Now the question comes here that how this process is done. It means how is it doing, like how is it happening that Spring is creating object of this class and then injecting into this class? Of course, to do this one, to provide all these metadata, it means we provide the metadata about the classes. We provide all this metadata to IOC container. We provide all these data about the classes, from which class to which class, which data from this class to this class we want to inject, or the object we want to inject. We provide all these information to IOC and we give them to IOC. And then IOC knows how to perform the injection. Now the question comes here that how does IOC take the information? How does IOC, or inversion of control container, IOC container take the information? We can call information, or we can call them the metadata. The IOC container will take all this information or metadata in the form of XML file or annotations. These are the two things that we will be doing in Spring Core. We'll be covering in Spring Data Integration, Spring MVC, Spring Web, and all these things. All modules of Spring will be, I'll cover with how to do with XML file and how to do with annotation based. And also with Java class also we have another method, and then classes I will also cover that one. So this is called dependency injection. What dependency injection is and how dependency injection is done. Now in case you want to bring any changes to this class will not be affected, or bring any changes to this class will not be affected. So means that they are completely loosely coupled. They are not tightly coupled. And Spring does is this is the thing that Spring does, that it brings it Spring does means that Spring brings, or Spring gives us the ability to create loosely coupled applications. So in this video we talked about what are the content, or what are the things that I'm going to cover here. We also talked about prerequisites of Spring. What are important, what are the things that we must know or we have to know. And we also talked about spring definition, what spring is. We talked about dependency injection, and we also talked about IOC container. But IOC container, in the next video, I'll talk about IOC container, how IOC container is done or it works, and what are the classes in order to perform the injection. And okay, this is enough for today's class, and we'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.